In fact, I think that these small things you are doing are the big things that have the big impact. And that's the point. If we want to change something in the world, we have to do it together.
It's time to change the world. It's time for something better. We're telling the stories of people who are changing the world and how you can help. Businesses, nonprofits, artists, and individuals who have found a problem and then created a solution. You'll come away from every episode with action steps you can take to be part of that solution. We can each change the world every single day. Our daily actions have a massive impact, so what will we do about it? We can remake the world, because guess what? We can. Hi everyone, and welcome to We Can Remake the World, a podcast about people who are changing the world and how you can help. Today we're continuing our series of conversations with everyday people, so to speak. Friends and acquaintances of ours, artists we love, people who inspire us, who may not be building a business or a nonprofit or building or leading an organization of some kind. These folks will join us to talk about their version of the world and their thoughts on how we can make this a better place to be. More just talking and exchanging of ideas and experiences. I really love our guests. We've been fortunate enough to have some incredibly successful and inspiring people on our show. But I have to say, I really enjoy these conversations too. They're a little more casual and really free as far as the topics we cover and the direction of the discussion, which I think is a really nice contrast. Today, we're joined by my good friend Conrad, who was born in Germany and raised in Spain. Conrad is one of those amazing, endlessly creative people who always has several projects going on at once. Each project is interesting and done with an amazing level of quality, and he's just always coming up with new ideas. I love talking to Conrad about everything from music to art to history. Conrad always has something interesting to say. He's traveled the world as a photographer and has some of the best stories of anyone I know. And Conrad's also one of the most thoughtful people I've ever met. He's just a really interesting person with a lot of experience, which informs the way he thinks about everything. And I love talking with him and learning about his view of the world because I feel like I learn about the world through the way he looks at it and thinks about it, especially because we come from totally different backgrounds. He's one of those friends who has made lockdown life so much better. We're always checking in with each other, catching up, and getting together when we can and however we can. I'm so grateful Conrad took some time to chat with me about the ideas we explore on our show. How to stay focused on a better world, how to help build that world, what's challenging us, and how we can overcome it. And we had a really great time chatting. I hope you enjoy. So I have my friend Conrad Piepenburg with me today, and I'm really excited to speak with him about some of the topics that, we all care about. So thanks so much for being with me today, Conrad.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan, for your invitation. And it's my first podcast, so I'm a little bit excited.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. We're excited to hear from you. One of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because you're so smart, you're so articulate, you're very thoughtful. So,
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with a bit about you. Would you tell us a bit about your background, your story, where you're from, and what you do, and maybe a little bit about what you're passionate about too?
Okay. So we are doing this interview in Hamburg. I was born in Hamburg, but my parents left very quickly and they moved to the south of Germany. And after that, they moved to Spain. So basically, I grew up in Spain. And by Spain, I mean the Canary Islands. That geographically is a little bit more Africa than it is Spain.
Where are the Canary Islands exactly?
They are by Morocco.
Okay.
Yeah. Geographically, I would say it's Africa and it's not Spain. Since long times ago, they belong to Spain. And in fact, when Columbus went to discover America, he stopped, after leaving Spain, he stopped on the Canary Islands.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then I moved back to Hamburg, and I started to work with a very famous fashion photographer and became a photographer. And some years ago, I started another business on the side that is Papa's Gold. We doing potatoes on a Canary way to prepare it.
Yeah, the technique is from the Canary Islands.
Right.
And this is how we met. I went to Conrad's shop where he was selling his potatoes. It was a pop-up shop in Hamburg, and it was so delicious that we had to talk to him more about it, and we became friends. So these papas, these potatoes, are amazing. I hope everyone gets the chance to try them. And if you don't mind, talk a little bit about just what you're passionate about too. I mean, you have the Papa's Gold business on the side. You also still, I think, take photos. What kind of drives you in the work that you do?
Well, if you ask me for my passion, I would say one of my passions is nature. I really love nature. I also like riding my bike, and of course I ride my bike in nature, and it's a way to experience nature. And then another passion that drives me is design. There's one German designer called Dieter Rams. His philosophy is basically to reduce it to the max. And this is something that, as a small boy, already impressed me a lot. Because if you reduce something to the max, only the basic stays. And you can apply it to so much things. So, for example, to the papas that I do. It's because it's not a fancy thing I'm doing. It's just potatoes. You cook it with in a very salty water, so they get a salt crust. And it tastes so good because you have this taste of the salt of the sea and the earthiness of the potato. And if you do it right, and if you choose the right potatoes, and then you make a nice sauce with it, the world is wonderful while you eat them.
It's true. I agree completely. The world gets 10 times better when you're eating these potatoes. They're so good. One of the things I love about Papa's Gold is that you choose to use sustainable materials in how you package it. And I know that you're very mindful of even the paper that you serve the potatoes in and the fork that you give customers. It's not made of plastic. Would you talk about some of those choices that you've made and what they are?
Well, you got to know Papas in a pop-up store I did in the Schanze here in Hamburg. But usually we doing Papa's Gold on festivals. And festivals means that because we are on big festivals, so at least 20,000, maybe even more people come together on one spot.
For music festivals, right?
Yeah, right. Sorry, music festivals. And then they come to one spot. So I tried to find a way to do this so our impact would be as small as possible. So what can you do? The first thing is you can try to minimize the waste you are having. So we thought about a package, and with a person that works on paper bags, we designed a packaging that allows you to carry the papas and have the sauces also in the same packaging without touching each other. So if you want a lot of sauce, you can have a lot of sauce. If you don't want any sauce, that is possible. And it's all done with a bag that is, the weight is only 7 grams, and it will deteriorate. Biodegrade,
yeah.
Yes. So after 3 months, nothing would be left. So this was important. And of course, we have forks of wood. And then the other way is you add the energy you are using. And we're trying to find a way to use as less energy as possible. Potatoes have vitamin C. So if you do this right, you could conserve lots of the vitamin C in the potato. So we try to do this.
That's so interesting. So because they have a lot of vitamin C, they self-preserve in a way as long as you cook them properly. Is that right? Or
Yes. You shouldn't cook them too hot, too long and stuff like this. and then you can preserve the vitamin C in the potato.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. They are quite healthy food, potatoes. Also, they are basisch. You say in German,
Basisch.
You have acid, and then you have the other thing.
Alkaline, basic. Rather than acidic, it's basic.
Or it's
alkaline.
a basic food, right.
Yeah, something you said I never had realized when I was ordering the potatoes at the shop is that the packaging it has a built-in pouch for the sauce, which keeps it separate from the potatoes.
On both of the sides.
Right, so you can have 2 sauces, there's variety, and then it's separate from the potatoes. But the perfect thing about that is there's no separate container, which is more waste, as you said. Often those little ramekins, we call them in English in the US, they're made of plastic. And they're often not made of compostable material like corn or something. So it's just thousands and thousands of these little plastic cups, which are used for these sauces, which are found everywhere, like fast food restaurants and for ketchup and things like that. So it's really a brilliant way, I think, to solve that problem. And I actually hadn't thought of it before now. That's really awesome.
Yeah. The first event I had, and it was so complicated. So I said, I can't do it like that. And then I started to think, and then the guy who was doing the bags, I asked him, can we do something? And this, in fact, is a very old traditional company that do these paper bags. And I was lucky to find a really expert. We found a way to glue these bags. So when you open it, you have 2 separate compartments for your sauce. So you can have, in the big compartment, you have the potatoes, and on the sides you have the sauce, without needing anything else. And as I said before, the simple things are the good things. So this was very simple. And on a festival, you sell thousands of these, and then you have 7 grams you're throwing away after you eat that.
So much less.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is that as you got started, you were already thinking about how can I minimize waste? How can I create packaging that will not cause harm, not have an impact on the environment? And what I wish is that everyone would start to do this when they're either making a new company, or if they already have an established company, they ask themselves this question: what is the best version of this that will have the least impact possible on the environment? And I think it's just a decision that we make. So it's really inspiring to hear that, that you made that choice, that you made that commitment, and you found the solutions, you found this company. There are options. There are always options if we just look for them, I think. Would you talk a little bit about, the potential that companies have, whether they're small or huge, to make a choice like that? And maybe also a bit about, in Germany, that's happening more and more because there's regulations that are limiting plastic and things like that.
Well, the good thing is that what I'm doing now, it's not so special anymore, because now regulations have changed. And what I just heard today, that's also very interesting, because we have now this pandemic times, that the waste has skyrocketed again, because everybody is ordering from the restaurant. But the problem with this is you have to pack it. You have a lot of packaging, because everything this sauce has to be packed, and this parts and whatever. Yeah, but this will change again. But yeah, in Germany, laws are changing, and we are thinking about all this waste we are producing. And why did I do it? Because some years ago, I realized that a plastic piece you see lying around, if it's a bag, it might last 20 or more years. But if you have a plastic bottle, that could be there, or parts of it could be there in 400 years. So that's crazy. And then you think, I'm not using so much plastic, and I will think about it, and I try to use less. And then you bring your garbage to the garbage box, and then you see you're bringing huge masses every 2 days, and then you ask, who is using it? Well, you are doing it. And then I started to look after that, and Yeah, and maybe the second part of your question, I don't know if this refers to it, but what I find about this also is we are so accustomed to do the things that we do that we don't think much about it. And we do it because we do it. And I started to rethink this whole thing. You see, this sweater I'm wearing, or the T-shirt I'm wearing, is made of merino wool. And merino wool means you can wear it much longer times, and you don't need to wash it so often. And this material has very good qualities, because in summertime it will cool you down, and in wintertime it will warm you up, and you breathe very well. And this is from a very special company that only sells to you directly. Also, the clothing industry is a really big industry that's poisoning or
destructive for
destructive
chemicals and
so. Well, with this clothing, you can do a little bit good thing. Then the next step would be, what I really hate now is all these shampoos. Because if you think of it, when I was a little boy, we didn't have this. What did we use? We used soap. And somehow they educated us that we think, oh, that's luxurious. It's a nice thing. And then every 2 weeks you use one bottle of plastic.
Yeah.
And if you're using soap, I don't know, my piece of soap, I think I use it for 1 month. And I started to look for soaps, and now I'm using a soap that is produced in Africa. Dudu Osun, it's a name, and it's also done with ash, because it's dark, with ash of coconuts.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know how they do it, but I tested several soaps, and it's so fantastic because you just want to use this one piece of soap, because you can put it in your face and then you shave with it. You can wash your hair. It has a lot of grease in it, so it's very good to your skin. So I'm a big fan of this soap. What I wanted to say is this soap is packed in a piece of paper, and I use it once. If I use
shower gel.
I would use, I think, 4 bottles for one piece of soap.
Wow, yeah.
So that's a big impact.
Yeah, and if you think about it, think just that example. One person using 4 plastic bottles or one teeny piece of paper over and over and over again for years. And before long, it's hundreds of plastic bottles versus 10 little bits of paper. And then if 100 people make that choice, then it's thousands less of the plastic bottles. If 1,000 people make that choice, then it's hundreds and it just gets larger. So we make this point a lot on the podcast, that it's like every individual's choices have massive impact because of the scale of our world and because of how many disposable products we're used to buying and using, like you said. And it's so easy to not think about what happens after we throw it in the recycling bin or in the trash bin. Mm-hmm. But our recycling systems, unfortunately, aren't really that good. So they end up in the ocean or somewhere else. So to say this shortly, what I love about what you're saying is it's all about the individual commitment, individual awareness about the choices that we make and the impact that they have, and then making that choice to do the best thing you can. And I just think that's so powerful.
Well, in fact, I think that these small things you are doing, that are the big things that have the big impact. Your decision, am I going by train, or do I go with a big car or a small car? Or do I use shower gel or soap? Do I eat meat or not? And for this, the conscious has to change. So we see what is the result of our action. And if our conscious changes, I think we can change quite a lot. And I don't mean we have to restrict ourselves, because I don't think you need to restrict. It's just good to think over it. Also, it's funny because I started in photography as a photographer, and I started in the field of car photography.
You traveled the world taking photos of cars, a lot in the U.S., right?
Yeah, I did. I did travel quite a lot, and I shoot cars everywhere, and I was lots in California and other parts of the States. I remember when I started as a photographer, at least here in Germany, I don't know in the States, I think in the States the situation was a little bit different. But here in Germany, we were accustomed to use normal cars and normal shapes. And then suddenly this SUV vehicles started to pop up. And I know that we all thought, for what do we use this kind of car? Because it's not performing well on the road, and it's not performing well off-road. So it's if I want to go off-road, I take a Jeep, and it would perform perfectly. And if I want to go nicely on the road, I take a car. But slowly, the industry changed the mindset of the people. That we thought, oh yeah, we love the SUVs because we are higher and we can see much better, and the sitting position will be much better, and it of course is much secure than a car that's lower. And maybe all this is right, but the other point is, no, you're using a car that has double of weight, and if you just take one trip with your car, you not only use much more energy, you also use more of the brakes and everything, and you have to go to the repair shop often. So, of course, the industry and the German car industry needs to sell you an expensive car, because the cheaper cars, we can't compete with them. So they are trying to sell you this. And this is somehow the same thing like this shower gel. Like we were educated by the industry to use something more luxurious and leave the soap and go to the shower gel. I do so much traveling in the city, and I see mostly I'm traveling with the same speed on a bike than a car on the road.
I noticed that too on a bike. It's like I always beat the cars, I always beat the buses. Sometimes they go in front of me, but then I always catch up because they're at a red light or something and I can keep going. And
right.
It's interesting. I've noticed that every city I've lived in, right. I always have biked. Chicago, New York, here in Hamburg. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Then the amount of energy, like you're saying, that I am expending and the resources versus the resources and energy of a large vehicle in a city setting. It's interesting.
Right, and when you break it down, it's also you're not moving in the car, so you're getting unhappy in the car. And on a bike, I'm doing something, and I love to do biking. So what I say is, I arrive in a good mood on a bike, in a bad mood in a car, and then I arrive and I have to find a parking spot. With a bike, I just leave it where I want to go, because there's everywhere a possibility. So that's a big difference.
I really love that idea. It's like you get to the same place. You get to the same place in pretty much the same amount of time, but how you arrive is very different. In a car, you're probably stressed because of traffic, or you're impatient, or you had all kinds of things in your ears because you can multitask, so you're not really focused. On a bike, you've just gotten exercise. You've moved your body. You feel good. I really like that metaphor for a lot of things, honestly. And one thing also that you said that I love is the industry has educated us to behave a certain way. And I think that's been going on now for maybe 60, 70 years.
I think we have to be careful, because we are not the Opfer. You know what the Opfer is? We are doing the decisions by ourselves.
Exactly.
Industry is not doing for us. So we decide not to buy the soap and to buy the shower gel.
Yeah. So we've allowed ourselves to be educated by the industry, basically, and we've allowed them to inform the choice we make. And now I think something is changing, and maybe it starts small, but I think this is the trend that we certainly are trying to build, but I see it all over the world, people now are re-educating themselves, I think, to sort of question the status quo and say, okay, this is what's normal, but is it good? And so now the people can educate each other. We can educate ourselves and educate each other. And we have so much more access to information that gives us a broader perspective. So, okay, we've allowed ourselves to be sort of trained by these large companies to behave a certain way, but now it's time for us to train ourselves based on, what we value, and to have more and more of these conversations, and to ask companies, why are you trying to sell me this SUV that's very inefficient? Or why are you using so much plastic when there are all these other alternatives that are better for the earth, they're better for us, they're better in so many ways. So we just have to know that the alternatives exist, and then, continue to educate ourselves and educate each other.
Right. This is the thing, and also I think we stay in our comfort zones. We like that, and it's cozy, and there's where we want to be. And the thing is to think over the situation and see and get impressions, and then we try to step out of the comfort zone, and then this is what makes the changes. I think it's okay to try to sell a SUV, but we are the people that buying this SUV. And I wouldn't say it's okay to buy a SUV. That's where everybody has to make his own decisions.
So you were mentioning that the Germans at first were sort of questioning these new vehicles and the importance of them, and that kind of sparked an idea for me. I would love to hear you speak more about, what you see as the German mindset when it comes to protecting the environment, or how Germans behave as consumers. Do you think Germans overall are conscious as consumers, or becoming more conscious? What do you think about what the rest of the world could learn from Germany as far as how it thinks about these things, or how could Germany be better?
Well, I don't know. Everybody is different, even we Germans. So if I would compare Germany to the States, we live in a much smaller space. We live in a small country in a place called Europe, and you live in a continent. So if we harm environment, we notice it so much faster than you do in the States, because you have much more around you. This is probably one thing that we learned to look for it, because otherwise we create our own problems very fast. Maybe Germany has great engineers, and we have created things for environment that helps the world, but we also have created lots of cars. So we are providing the world with these cars, and these cars are a big problem. Not only the pollution they are doing, but the exhaust pipe. The pollution of microplastics, there are two biggest creators, is the things we wear, because when we wash plastic things,
polyester,
stuff like this, microplastic gets into water,
right.
And then the second thing is the rubber of the tires.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah,
that makes so much sense.
It's a big problem, because every car is driving, and then of course an SUV has much more. Because it has more power, much more microplastic, the tires, rubbers. And what happens is that it rains, and then the sun shines, and then this goes up, and this goes into the cloud, and then you have it everywhere.
Yeah,
you have it everywhere.
In the rain, even in the snow. I mean, it's coming from the sky.
Yeah, of course, and on the fields.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, but I think so. It has to, because it's so small, it has to go into the food.
And then the animals, and the animals who, if you eat meat, the animals who are eating the plants with the pollutants and the plastics, then it bioaccumulates, I think is the term, which means that if you eat an animal that has eaten plastic, it's even more in your body. So, yeah. So you can't. It's everywhere. Yeah.
It's everywhere. And another thing about using plastic also is you can recycle plastic, and then you can use it again. But one problem also with plastic is that you have so many different kinds of plastic.
Right.
And then it's hard because if we would use only one kind of plastic, you could take that and recycle it and then make another product. But with all these different kinds, it makes it hard.
Yeah, we interviewed a guest who really had an amazing analogy for this. She said, you can't take 3 different kinds of cake and then mush them together and then separate them out again and have the same. You can't take a carrot cake and a chocolate cake and push them together and then make a carrot cake and a chocolate cake again. It's you need to have the same material. So the different types of plastic, and most people aren't even aware of this, but we can't recycle nearly as much as we think we can. And she said also something so smart, which is, this is Emma from Final Straw. I think it was our 2nd or 3rd episode. Okay. She said, plastic is not the problem. It's how we use it. Plastic is genius. It can last forever.
Exactly.
So if you use it the right way.
I heard you talking, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. It's it's an amazing material that's so cheap, and we can do amazing things with it if we use it in that way, in a way that's meant to last forever. But when we make these disposable products, or these products which erode and get into the water, like the tires or our clothes, it's how we use it that's the problem.
What sometimes it's not pain, but it goes like pain is like when you go to the supermarket and you see so much plastic.
So much.
And everything is packed and packed and packed and packed. And nobody thinks about it. And these amounts of plastic you are carrying to the garbage every 2 days. But as you said, plastic can be fantastic, because plastic you can bring in forms no other material can make. It will last long if you treat it well. And so it has a lot of good things. And if you use it like this is nice. I'm also a fan of plastic, but like many things, we are not using it properly, and that's a problem.
Yeah. What do you think are some of our biggest barriers to kind of making better choices and making a better world? Do you think it's a lack of awareness of the alternatives? Do you think it's people just being used to what they're used to, and they, like you said, they don't want to go outside of their comfort zone? Do you think that not enough companies and governments are educating people? What do you think are the biggest things that stand in our way for making these better choices and making a better world?
Well, I think it's because we're doing the things we are doing, and we are not thinking about it because we do it like we do it. But I see that there is changing a lot. I see, for example, in mobility, now the change is happening. Now we know that we can't use engine cars for so much longer time, and we are starting to experiment. We have hydrogen, I think, hydrogen as an energy, electric as an energy, and a car company you haven't heard like 10 years ago called Tesla now is much more worth than the whole car industry in the world. And why is that? Because they produce electric cars.
Right.
So you see the change there happening. And also the German industry is to this point, and they are bringing out new concepts, new cars, and
Yeah, it's exciting to see some of the changes taking shape. And I know in Germany too, actually, they use more, I think, sustainable materials to build the cars sometimes, which are lighter and also stronger, like using hemp or a hemp composite instead of metals for some of the parts of the cars, the doors and the floor of the car, and some of that kind of engineering and experimentation of materials that can make such a huge difference. Because if you think about it, again, it's about the scale. So, okay, maybe there aren't a lot of cars that use hemp in their production, or maybe there aren't a ton of electric cars right now compared to the ones that don't use these sources of energy and these materials. But if one car company, which makes millions of cars every year, makes one small change, it actually has a huge impact. And then when people see that it's possible, then they say, well, why isn't my car company doing this. I want that too. And suddenly the whole industry changes. So I think awareness is so important.
Yes. Yeah, constantly we have to rethink and be open to this. Yeah, I see these changes. For example, here in Germany, I'm not sure in the States how's that, but we have this Fridays for Future. And these are really young people from the schools where they really are caring about what kind of world do we want to live in the future. Because this is our decision. And we decide what kind of world will come.
In Fridays for Future, I've seen it. And would you talk a little bit more about Fridays for Future and how it manifests? And I know that there are marches and there's sort of a whole kind of movement around that. Would you talk a bit more about it?
Well, it all started with a Swedish girl, Greta Thunberg. And with her perseverance, she got very famous. And lots of young people followed her around the world and in Germany. And now you have like complete cities closed because so many young people are on the road on Fridays and doing demonstrations. And there's a lot of critics about this. People say, oh, this is not thought through and how can we do and so on. And I think that's not the point. It's not the point that young people tell us how we should do it. Young people tell us we should stop with what we are doing and we should think how we can do better. And this is the good thing I like about this.
Absolutely. And because those young people aren't used to everything so much like everyone else is. You know, they haven't been trained, as we were talking about, by anyone to think a certain way. And what they see is we can do better. That's what they know, I think, at their core. We can do better than this. So let the people who are already creating the cars, creating the plastic products, creating all of the businesses, let them find the solutions, but they know that we can do better and they refuse to be told otherwise, which I think is really important. I think you're right. It's the role that they play to say, we need to do better. And then it's up to the world at large to find the solutions, the ones who are already in a position to make that change. But it starts with somebody saying we must do better, you know?
Yeah, we can't keep on. And because if we keep on, we will destroy everything. And this climate changes that happen, then they will cost us also. And this costs us much higher. So let's put this money in changing rather than in repairing what we break.
Right. Yeah. It's much more cost effective to find a new way to make something than to have if you can't sell the thing you're making because the market has collapsed, because the systems are falling apart, then what's the point? I mean, why preserve your profits if they're temporary? You know, it's like a short-term mindset rather than a long-term mindset. There's a kind of a big question that I want to ask you, and I'll be interested to hear what you think. What is one mindset that you wish everyone would adopt when it comes to making a better world? What is one way of thinking that you wish everybody would take on and make part of how they behave?
True. Well, I don't know. I think there is no one mindset. I think people are so different. And even Germans are so different. There is not the German. We are so different. This is something we learned in history. It's not good to have one person telling us how we should do it. So everybody should be open, I think, and look what is happening and think about what he is doing and how he's behaving and how he...
Yeah, I love that. Basically, I think what I hear when you say that is if there is one mindset, it's just do what you can where you are.
Yeah, and be open.
Make the choice that you want to make, that you feel inspired to make based on your beliefs or circumstances or behaviors. Just find that thing that you can do to make a better choice, to make a positive impact. And that's it. You know, you don't have to look to other people to make the choice that they're making. You don't have to, there's not one answer to all of the questions we're asking. It's just, what can you do? From how your life is, make your choice, you know?
Yeah. It's all about your thoughts and what you think, and be open and to check your thoughts if this is right or not. And
just be self-aware and expose yourself to information, and be willing to make change. Be willing to assess your habits, and decide if you're making the right choice. And then if you're not, from your perspective, make a better choice.
Yeah, I also think we are not on a lost standpoint. I think
absolutely.
There's quite a lot of changes, and now with this special time of the pandemics, even more changes will come, because we are talking already a lot of what is the role of a city in the future, because the commerce has changed so extreme. People don't need to use offices so much, and they can work at home. That's another aspect. We don't need to travel as much, because we can do online conferences. So all this is changing, and all this done through the internet is such a drastic change.
Yeah, what I'm thinking about as you talk about this is all of the changes that we've been through. If there's something positive or a silver lining, it's that we're getting used to change, which could be a very positive thing, because we're all changing our habits, changing our actions, and we are already rethinking everything. So it's a perfect opportunity in a way to truly rethink everything, to say, okay, what's the world that we want to have be our normal once we go back to whatever normal is, when we have some more freedom? Like, we have an opportunity to rethink so much and to build a new foundation, because we had to, we're being forced to, in a way, which is challenging and difficult and scary sometimes, but also maybe very positive, because we're all thinking in these new ways. So we start to rethink when we are coming to a point where we say, okay, it's not working, so I need to get another. Right. Yeah, we wait until we have to change. Yeah, it's true. I think it's kind of a human trait. That happened to me. I mean, I remember I used to eat very bad food, and until I had really bad digestive problems, then I started eating better. And so it's like, I think that, and a lot of people will talk about, I got really sick, and then I made better choices. I started exercising more. It's kind of a human trait. So maybe this is sort of an opportunity for us to be forced to make some really positive changes before the really bad stuff happens, before our ocean levels rise, or before the natural storms are so bad that we lose an entire city or something crazy. Maybe this is an opportunity to be forced to make positive change before it gets truly bad. So, Conrad, who is someone who inspires you as far as the example that they're setting in the world?
The other day, I heard a podcast about an artist. Jeppe Hein is his name. He's a Danish artist, and he lives in Berlin. And he had a big crisis and came out of the crisis with an artistic project called Breathe With Me. And that inspired me quite a lot, because basically what he's saying is that the breath is something that unifies the whole world. Everybody breathes, and he did a fantastic project 2019 in New York. There was this I think climate conference in the UN, and then in the Central Park he built up a huge wall where hundreds of people could come. And basically you got a brush and some paint, and you stood by this wall and concentrate on your breath, and then you would breathe in very deeply, and then you would breathe out. And by breathing out, you would draw a line, a blue line with this brush downwards. And this hundreds and thousands of people did do this, and created this huge wall of blue lines. And this was an amazing experience for all the persons that did this. And what I liked so much about it, it's such a simple thing that we do so much, is the breath. And what experiences came to these persons, and finding out that we all have this in common. And that's the point. If we want to change something in the world, we have to do it together. And with this artwork, you unify the people, and this conscious is, I think, doing so good. So this is something I really liked about this art project and inspired me.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And I think it also says to me, we're all in this together. So we have to stop thinking that we're separate from anything, from each other, from even wildlife, from the earth. We're all in this together. We're all part of this experience. And even the breath itself, we're contributing to the system of the earth by breathing, because we take in oxygen, which is given to us by plants and by the ocean, and then we give back carbon dioxide. So just by being alive, you're part of this system. You can't escape it. So it's important to really be mindful of that, and to recognize that we are really all in this together. We're part of this system together, so we have to care for it and care about it, and for our sake and also each other's sake. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. So thank you so much, Conrad. This has been really nice. It's been really great to just converse with you, and I just appreciate your perspective, because I think you're so smart, you're so thoughtful, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.